This podcast powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free. Welcome back to the Conversion Bible.
Always great to be here.
You know, we always get asked,
Yeah,
how can I take my Shopify store to the next level?
for sure.
What are some of the secrets?
Yeah.
And today we're diving deep into a topic
Uh,
that I think is really kind of at the heart of that.
right.
And that's personalization.
It's personalization.
This idea that you can really
That's so powerful.
tailor
Oh, yeah.
the shopping experience for
Yeah.
each individual customer
Yep.
to really increase your conversions
Yeah.
and build those customer relationships in
That's
a
it,
way
what it
that
is,
just
yeah.
wasn't possible maybe even just a few years ago.
Even a few years ago, it was so much more basic.
So to really go deep on this, we're
Yeah.
taking the insights from The Power of Personalization, tailoring the Shopify experience for each customer.
Great guide.
It's one of the Conversion Bible series
Yeah.
by Mohammed Tawfiq Yapan.
I mean, there's so much great stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to...
So we're going to pull out the really good stuff
Yeah,
and really help you understand
absolutely.
how you can do this
Yeah.
on your own Shopify store.
And actually kind of some actionable things you can walk away with.
Right.
I think that's the goal here today.
Yeah. Not just theory.
No.
But like, okay,
Yeah.
here's what I can actually do to
Right.
make this happen.
Yeah.
So let's sort of start at the beginning.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
we talk about personalization a lot
Yeah.
and this idea of showing people things that they
Yeah.
might like based on past behavior.
Right.
But why is that so effective?
You know, I think what's so fascinating here is
Yeah.
how it taps into our human psychology in so many ways. Like as the guide points out,
Okay.
you know, we're naturally drawn to things
Yeah.
that feel familiar, that
Mm.
feel relevant to us,
Right.
you know, and when you think about the online experience,
Yeah.
it can often feel very
It's overwhelming.
overwhelming.
It's anonymous.
Yeah.
It's like you're just one of millions of people.
You're just a number, right?
Right.
So when your Shopify store
Yeah.
presents content
Yeah.
that recognizes you, that
Yeah.
recognizes past interactions,
Right.
that recognizes stated preferences.
Yeah.
It really makes a customer feel seen and valued.
Seen. Right.
Yeah, and that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
We want to feel like,
We don't want to be
oh yeah, this store gets me.
just a number. Yeah.
Yeah, they get me. They understand my needs.
Exactly. It's like that feeling you get when,
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever go to like a local bookstore
I love local bookstores.
and the owner kind of knows your tastes and they're
Yeah.
like,
Hey, I've got the perfect book for you.
I just got this new book in.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're going for.
Exactly. It's that same feeling.
Yeah. And the guide points out that
Yeah.
it actually triggers positive responses in the brain.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
like there's something that happens.
It's not just a feeling. It's
There's a chemical reaction that's
there's
happening.
science to it.
There's
yeah.
a science.
Yeah.
When you feel recognized
Right.
and like
Yeah.
you're being catered to,
Yeah.
your brain's like, hey, this is good. I like this.
I feel good.
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah.
So you're much more likely to engage with that brand, come back to that store.
Right. So it's more than just that feel good thing.
It's more than just,
And it also solves a real problem.
yeah.
This decision fatigue
Oh, decision fatigue is huge.
that I think we all face
Online.
Oh my God.
There are just so many choices.
endless choices. Yeah.
And it's paralyzing.
I'm going to spend 2 hours
You know, we've all been there.
looking for his
You're scrolling and you're scrolling. You're like, I don't even know what I want anymore.
brush.
Right. It's like, what am I even looking for?
Right. And so the idea that you can show people
That's where personalization comes in.
just the relevant stuff
Yeah.
based on
You know, it's like having that personal shopper
we have already bought.
that's saying, hey, based on your past purchases or based on what you've looked at, here's some things that you might really like.
Yeah.
And it just takes away all of that noise.
Makes those decisions
all that noise.
so much easier.
It just makes it so much easier to say, okay, this is what I want. Add to cart.
Add to court.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the guide also mentions that
Right.
personalization builds trust.
This is so huge.
Yeah.
I know. It's like,
Counterintuitive,
Yeah.
almost.
Right.
Like, how does that happen?
how can a website build trust with you?
Right.
Yeah. Well, when a customer
Yeah.
consistently sees that your store understands them,
Right.
gets their needs,
Yeah.
and is catering to their preferences,
Okay.
it builds this feeling of, hey, they're reliable.
Right.
I can trust them to provide what I need.
I see. It's like
They're attentive to my needs.
any other
And that's where the trust comes from.
It's about being understood
Yeah.
and consistently
Delivering on that.
And that's the foundation
Yeah.
for repeat business,
Right.
for customer loyalty.
Yeah. Now, one thing the guide mentions is that not everyone responds to personalization.
It's so true.
Same way.
It's so true.
Right.
We have to be sensitive to that.
So how do we keep that in mind?
Yeah. When we're thinking about our own customers.
Well, first of all, you have to recognize that responses to personalization can vary based on, all sorts of factors.
Yeah.
Cultural norms,
Right.
individual preferences.
Yeah.
Some people love it when it's super tailored.
Yeah.
They love that feeling of, wow, you really get me.
Yeah.
Others are a little creeped out by it.
Right.
They're like, whoa, how do you know that about me?
You're like, back off.
Yeah, back off a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we figure that out?
Well, the first question to ask yourself is, how well do you really understand your specific customer base?
Yeah.
Have you really done that research?
Okay.
Do you know their demographics, their psychographics?
Yeah.
What are they comfortable with?
Okay.
What are their expectations
Right.
when it comes to personalization?
So it's like
And
step one is really know your customer.
do your customer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's always the first step.
Okay.
Right.
So we understand sort of why it works.
Okay.
Psychologically, it's very effective.
Right.
But now let's talk about business.
Okay, let's talk business.
What's the bottom line?
Bottom line.
Yeah.
What's the return
Show me the money.
on investment for doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, time is money.
Time is money.
So what does the data show?
Well, the data is actually quite compelling when it comes to personalization.
Good.
The guide highlights that I think it was 81% of customers actively prefer shopping experiences that are personalized.
The vast majority of people.
The vast majority.
Want this.
Yeah. And when you actually implement effective personalization strategies, you can see some pretty impressive results.
Okay. Like what? Like a 5 to 15% increase in overall revenue.
By 5 to 15%.
Yeah.
Okay. That's huge.
That's significant.
Yeah.
And your marketing return on investment can improve by 10 to 30%.
10 to 30%. Yeah. Okay.
So you're getting more bang for your buck with your marketing dollar.
Making more money from the same marketing spend.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is often overlooked is how personalization can actually reduce your customer acquisition costs.
Now, explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so
because that's the expensive part.
That kind of.
Right.
Think about it this way.
Right.
When you make your marketing efforts more targeted, more relevant to specific customer segments, you're not wasting as much money reaching people who aren't interested.
Okay.
So you're essentially spending less.
You're not.
To attract new buyers.
Yeah. Spraying and praying.
Because you're going right to the people who are most likely to be interested.
Right.
And the guide actually mentions that you can see reductions in your customer acquisition costs by up to 50%.
Up to 50%?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's huge.
That's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
So it's not just about making more money from each sale.
Per sale.
It's about also being more efficient in how you attract those customers in the first place.
More efficient with your marketing dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And beyond those quantifiable benefits, personalization also offers some really crucial strategic advantages.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, think about it.
Right.
The e-commerce environment today is so crowded.
So crowded.
There's a Shopify store.
And everyone and their brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So how do you stand out?
Right.
How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
And personalization can be a major differentiator.
Okay. So it's,
when many stores offer similar products,
it's their product.
It's the experience that sets you apart.
The shopping experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just buying a product, you're buying an experience.
Right.
And if that experience is tailored to you, and you feel like, wow, they really get me.
Yeah.
They understand my needs.
I'm more likely.
You're much more likely to choose that store.
You come back to that store.
Over another store that's just kind of generic.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think maybe the most important thing long term
I think you're right. Yeah.
is the loyalty.
The loyalty. Yeah. Customer loyalty and retention.
Right.
I mean, that's the holy grail of e-commerce.
It is. Because it's so expensive to acquire a new customer.
It's so much more expensive
Yeah.
to acquire a new customer than it is to keep an existing customer.
Yeah.
And personalization really helps with that.
If you can get those repeat customers, that is...
Because when customers feel genuinely understood and valued, they're much more likely to become repeat buyers.
Yeah.
And they might even become advocates for your brand.
Right. They become your...
They tell their friends.
Your biggest fans.
Yeah. They rave about you on social media.
Right.
And that's priceless.
Yeah.
You can't buy that kind of marketing.
So it sounds like whether you're a small Shopify store just starting out or you're a
huge brand.
Big brand.
Yeah.
This is something
the personalization is what
you would need to be thinking about.
For everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we're convinced on the why.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We're convinced on the potential benefit.
Absolutely.
But now...
Let's talk about the how.
The how, okay.
What are some of the key ways that someone running a Shopify store can actually...
How do they actually do this?
Implement personalization.
Okay.
And let's sort of...
Well, the guide outlines several key areas.
All different methods here.
Yeah, and I think one of the most effective and widely used is product recommendations.
Okay.
You know?
So tell me about that. How does that work?
So you can base these recommendations on a lot of different factors.
Okay.
You know, a customer's browsing history.
Right.
What have they looked at in the past?
Okay.
Their purchase history.
Yeah.
What have they actually bought?
Right.
You can even recommend complementary items that kind of naturally go well with whatever they're currently looking at.
I see.
And the placement of these recommendations is really important. Right. So where some of the highest...
Think about where you see these recommendations all the time.
Where we see this in action.
Like product pages.
Okay.
You know, you're looking at a product.
Right.
And it says, hey, customers who got this also bought.
Yeah, you might also like.
You might also like.
Yeah.
Shopping carts.
Okay.
You know, you're about to check out and it says, hey, you might also want to add this.
Right.
Even on the homepage.
Okay.
You know, you can have personalized sections on the homepage.
Yeah.
That say, picked for you based on your past activity. Here's what we think you might like.
So it's like that's personalization in action.
These recommendations can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, so that's one.
Yeah.
What's another?
Another one is personalized email marketing.
Okay.
And this
is more than just like...
This goes way beyond just...
Hi, first name.
Putting their name in the greeting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. You can send emails with product recommendations that are tailored to their browsing history.
Right.
Abandoned cart reminders that have personalized incentives to encourage them to complete their purchase.
Right.
Post-purchase follow-up emails that offer relevant information or suggestions.
Right.
So you're really...
So instead of just blasting out...
So email through email.
Yeah.
Right. You're actually
instead of just blasting out...
Very targeted, relevant emails.
Yeah. Generic emails to everyone. You're sending targeted messages that offer specific value to each individual customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? What's another one?
So another one is dynamic content.
Okay.
This is all about...
Now explain what dynamic content is, because I think that's...
Imagine this. Yeah.
That maybe not everyone is familiar with.
Dynamic content is essentially customizing different elements of your storefront based on visitor behavior.
Right.
So let's say, for example, you have banners on your homepage.
Right.
You know, those big flashy images.
Right. Yeah, everyone has banners.
Wow. Well, with dynamic content, you can actually change what banners a customer sees based on their past interactions with your store.
Right.
So, for example, a returning customer might see different banners than a first-time visitor.
See.
Right.
Yeah.
You can also use dynamic content to personalize the featured product sections on your collection pages or even the promotional messages that they see.
Right.
So it's really all about making the experience more tailored and dynamic.
The moment someone lands on your page, it already feels it's already working for them.
Relevant for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What's another area that we can personalize?
Another one I think that is really powerful but often overlooked is search results.
Okay. Right.
Everyone uses the search bar on a website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Especially when they're looking for something.
Especially when they're looking for something specific.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we personalize that?
So you can actually tailor the products that appear in those search results based on a customer's past search queries and their browsing history. So if they've searched for, blue widgets in the past, and then they come back and they search for widgets, you might show them blue widgets first.
Right, because that's what
that's what they're probably looking for.
You've been interested in before.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just helps them find what they're looking for.
So you're making
it faster and easier.
Exactly. It improves their experience.
So less frustration, more...
It reduces frustration.
Happy customers.
And it increases the likelihood that they'll actually buy something.
Okay.
Right.
So we talked about product recommendations.
Yeah.
We've talked about email.
Yeah.
Dynamic content, search.
Yep.
What else?
Well, you can also...
What are some other...
personalized pricing and promotions.
Levers that we can pull?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you might show different discounts or special offers to different customer segments.
Okay.
Based on their purchasing behavior, their loyalty status.
Right. So like your
VIP customers.
Give your VIP customers a better discount.
Okay.
Or you might give a first-time customer a discount to encourage them to make their first purchase.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Another one is geographic personalization.
Okay. Now, what is that?
So this is all about...
Because that's one I don't know.
Adapting the content
as much.
of your store
Yeah.
based on a visitor's physical location.
Okay.
So, for example, you could show products that are relevant to the local weather.
Right.
So if it's raining in London, you might show umbrellas. And raincoats.
Okay.
Or you might display prices in their local currency.
Right.
So it just feels more...
So it feels less like a global...
It feels less like you're just some big corporation that doesn't really care about where they are.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Okay, so we've got...
What are some other...
behavior-based personalization.
Methods.
And this includes things like abandoned cart emails.
Right.
We talked about those before.
But you can also send reminders about items that they've added to their wish list.
Right.
Or recommendations based on their recent browsing activity.
Yeah. So it's really paying attention to what they're doing. Expert speaker.